Have you ever felt like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when you eat? Part of you is saying, "Don't eat that chocolate cake, you don't need or want it," while the other part of you is saying, "If I don't have that piece of cake right now, I'm going to die." While both thoughts are contradicting, it's hard to imagine that they are coming from the same place. Or are they? Research has shown that the drive behind the decision-making process comes from two different places in your brain: the limbic system, or the emotional side, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational side. Although it may seem reassuring that there are two different places in your brain that help you make decisions, the truth is that this can get confusing at times, even for your brain. You see, while the prefrontal cortex or rational brain speaks your language, the limbic system or emotional does not. Therefore, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde effect comes into play. So why doesn't our limbic system speak our language? Our limbic system is in charge of our survival. Think fight or flight. It has three prime directives: to survive, avoid pain, and seek pleasure. In this part of the brain, there is no guilt, shame, or moral code by which it lives by. Think of this part of the brain as the horsepower in a car. It is a very powerful force and can cause a lot of damage if we are reckless. One of the prime directives in the limbic system is to seek pleasure. When we don't have that need fulfilled in the world around us, we turn to other things that will fill that void. We may attach ourselves to food, people, drugs, and other addictions. When an attachment is formed to the limbic system, the happy hormone called dopamine is released into the body and concretes the emotional response to the given attachment. Remember that piece of chocolate cake that you need right now or you will die feeling? This is the limbic system making the connection that that piece of chocolate cake will fill that need for pleasure at that moment. So how can you recognize the addictive voice when it is speaking? Just remember the acronym BLAST. The addictive voice usually appears when you are experiencing one or more of these emotions: bored, lonely, angry, stressed, or tired. All of these emotions can compromise the efficacy of the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational part of the brain that can override the limbic system. The limbic system may be the horsepower behind the addiction, but the prefrontal cortex is the gas pedal. We have the choice to either give it power or not. There are 4 steps that we can do to overcome addiction and quiet the addictive voice. The first is awareness. We must realize where the thought or urge is coming from. Ask yourself, is it your addictive voice or your rational voice? The second step is acknowledgement. Recovery begins when we learn to accept the limbic system for what it is. So when the addictive voice says, "I need to eat this donut," try using the "it" principle. Simply say, "It needs to eat this donut." It being the limbic system. By doing so, you remove yourself out of the equation and the decision doesn't become as emotional. The wiring of the brain can be changed consciously by the proactive use of choice. The third step is to surrender. This is the hardest step of all. When you fight against something, the urge to want to do or want to have it becomes stronger. Surrendering is when you can accept the temptation for what it is, without the need to fight against it, so you can make the best decision. And lastly, the fourth step is mindfulness. This is where you choose not to give any attention to the thought or temptation. Now that you have learned how your brain works, think of how this can apply to you. First, what is your long-term or overarching goal? Is it just to avoid eating one specific thing, like eliminating dessert? Or is it to have more energy and feel good? By creating a vision for what you want, it will help solidify why you are making that change. You have the power to envision, define, and create what you want. It all comes down to a matter of choice. Remember, you can have the pain of self-mastery or the pain of regret. You choose.